Hello. Welcome to It's Culture Podcast, where I talk about politics, black culture, sports, anything. You name it, we talk about it. We cover it here in It's Culture. So thank you for tuning in tonight. Uh, so tonight, we're gonna get right into it. Got a few topics I want to talk about. I want to go over this Fani Willis case. Some new developments have happened over the weekend. We're going to discuss the judge's ruling and some other things that happened and that are about to happen in the case. We're going to talk about what's going on with Mayor Tiffany Henyard in the Dolton Township. Some new news out of Dolton, and we're going to talk about what's going on at the Supreme Court. I really need to start looking at these court cases and see what's going on at with the Supreme Court. So we're going to discuss that tonight. So if you could do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Help me get to 1,000 subs. That's all I ask. Just do that for me. Help me continue to grow this channel and bring you good content. So thank you for tuning in. So as I was saying, we have new news coming out of Atlanta, Georgia, in regards to the Trump election interference case that is being spearheaded by the prosecutor, district attorney, Fani Willis out of Fulton County. Now, we know that over the past month, that the Trump administration, not the administration, but the Trump legal team, as well as some of his co-defendants, have been filing charges, trying to file, they've been filing motions in court to have this case dismissed, have it thrown out because of an alleged relationship that started between the special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, and district attorney, Fani Willis. And because of that, it's a conflict of interest. That was their argument. They argued this case. They argued this before the judge. And Judge McAfee, who is the presiding judge over this case, listened to these arguments and made a ruling on Friday. Now, a lot of people thought that Fani Willis was about to get tossed because of what was perceived as a conflict of interest between her and Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade, and that deemed to be true. But what was also true was that it didn't rise to the level that disqualification for both Fani Willis and Nathan Wade. The judge split it down the middle, and he ruled that either A, Nathan Wade had to go, or B, Fani Willis and her whole team had to go. And in this situation, the reasonable situation was to eliminate any of this foolishness. And this was basically what the judge did. He basically said, "Look, y'all, yeah, it's a little bad. They got y'all. They got you dead and right. It really, yeah, they went and pulled one. They pulled a fast one on you, and they used the letter of the law. But so I'm not gonna throw this whole case out because I understand what's at stake here, and this would just be completely a win. And I don't want to see impartial to not bringing this to a trial and ruling and making it seem as if I was in cahoots with the Trump team to do anything. So this is what I'm gonna do. One of y'all gotta go. Y'all both can't stay. And the sensible thing was for Nathan Wade to go, and he ultimately resigned this over the weekend, and they can move on with the case. However, one of the things that the judge did do that I found very interesting was that in his report he kind of mentioned Fani Willis going to the church and potentially tainting a jury because she went there making comments that she knew that was not factual, and pretty much played the race card. and that was mentioned in his findings. So just more on that. I don't know if they're gonna try to use that angle or not, but in no sense in don't even know what I was about to say right there. Uh, but in the next instance, something happened today, and that's what we're going to discuss. So you knew Trump was going to fight back. You knew his team was going to fight back. So let's see. Let's go to Atlanta and see what happened.
We are following breaking news at 4. A new motion to once again disqualify Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis.
Anchor Savannah Louie just got these details, and she joins us now from the First Alert Breaking News desk with more. Savannah?
Sean Blair, the message here really is if at first you don't succeed, try again. That's coming from former President Donald Trump along with 7 of his allies here who have jointly filed this motion. They're trying once again to get Fulton County DA Fani Willis disqualified from prosecuting the former president and his allies. The motion arguing Willis's actions created an appearance of impropriety and odor of mendacity after a romantic relationship between she and a special prosecutor previously on the case came to light. In August, Trump and 18 allies were indicted by Willis on charges they attempted to overturn Georgia's 2020 election results. This is a fast developing story here at Atlanta News First. Digging into that motion right now. We'll continue to bring you all the latest updates as we develop more.
All right, so you see what happened? Trump decided that he was going to file a motion, try to appeal it. We'll see where that goes. I don't think it's going to go anywhere because the judge pretty much already has given you an ultimatum, and they obliged, and Nathan Wade is gone, and that's what y'all argued the first time. But now you're trying to argue something else on the same lines, and we already know what this is. This is classic. Let's play the long game here. Let's see if we can file enough motions, enough different motions, different appeals. Use this process all the way through. We're gonna play the long game, because ultimately what we want to do is get to November and make sure that the election goes on. This is just a play. Now, Fani, to her credit, and one of the things that the Trump's legal team tried to argue was that because Wade was getting paid more than all the other lawyers, that there would be an appearance that he made me want to stick on the case and drag this out because he's getting paid. But that's not the case in this case. Fani Willis is trying to speed this thing up because she knows what's at stake here. She knows that there's an election, and she's trying to get this case over and done with. Pick a jury. Let's go ahead and start arguing this case and go ahead and get them to deliberate within 6. You know what I'm saying? She's ready to get this case popping. And Trump's team is trying to delay this as much as possible so they can get to the election. Because then they can say that this is they're using this case as a political tool, trying to swing an election. We already know what the song of dance is. I guarantee you, sometime around August, September, this is what we're going to be hearing. So you hear it here tonight, okay? At 9 o'clock on March the 18th, okay? We already know what's about to happen. Trump's legal team is going to be arguing that this is election interference, and that this case is the Democrats' way of trying to steal an election by keeping this case going while the election is going. Y'all hear it? I'm letting y'all know this tonight at 9 o'clock. So if you hear it again, I may cut this out and spice it down the road and say, see, I said this way back in March that this was going to happen. So there you go. So moving on. Interesting stuff coming out of Dolton. Tiffany Henyard, the mayor of Dolton, as well as the Thornton Township supervisor, has, she stays in the news up there in Chicago, and it's not for good stuff. It's always something negative. She's already under investigation because of ethics. The ethics board is investigating for ethics. She has the FBI looking into her nonprofit. But now some other things have happened in regards to a trip that was supposed to be taken to Vegas, where there may have been an alleged sexual assault as well as a termination because of retaliation. So let's take a listen.
A new complaint is reported in Dolton.
And Elizabeth Matthews is standing by with more on what we know so far. Elizabeth?
Sylvia and Terrence, police sources are telling us that there was a police report filed here this week on Wednesday about an out-of-state sex assault filed here in South Holland with South Holland Police that's actually connected to a Village of Dolton and Thornton Township work trip to Vegas last year. The chief of police here in South Holland tells us that no one's been arrested and there are no warrants out for anyone's arrest. But here's what we do know. Sources are telling Fox 32 that this police report coincides with an ongoing investigation by the Illinois Department of Human Rights. A complaint was filed with that department claiming sexual assault and retaliation against Tiffany Henyard, the Dolton mayor and Thornton Township supervisor. A former employee of Henyard says she was sexually assaulted by a Dolton trustee during a Vegas trip last year. The complaint says she was disoriented and didn't know how she woke up in the trustee's hotel room. Then when she spoke out about it, she was retaliated against and later fired. The South Holland police chief says they have shared what they now know with out-of-state police.
Right now, we are cooperating with the state of Nevada. We are waiting to hear back from them as far as where they're at with this investigation. We would like to provide them our full cooperation, but based on the investigation, I'm limited to certain things that I can't expound on.
So again, while this police report was filed here in South Holland this week on Wednesday, just 2 days ago, no one has been arrested. The investigation is ongoing. Live in South Holland, Elizabeth Matthews, Fox 32, Chicago.
Okay, here we go again. So if you hear what happened, there's alleged there was a trip that happened between Mayor Tiffany Henyard, two of the trustees of the board, and some, I guess, an employee of one of the trustees. There was alleged some drinking, and a sexual assault happened. It got, alleged sexual assault happened. It got reported. There was a police officer that took the report. And when it was reported to the city, it was reported to the mayor. She said she was going to handle it. Ultimately, that employee was fired. If this is true, wow. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I'm not going to say if this is true because I'm not there. And I don't play around when it comes to allegations of assault, sexual assault, the R word, if you want to use it, all those things, triggering stuff. If you're taking advantage of somebody, yeah, you're a complete douchebag as far as I'm concerned. And so hopefully, I mean, the truth gonna come out in this case. We'll keep following that, and we're gonna get down to the bottom of it. I'll listen into the news to kind of bring it to you as it comes in, but I think that's something that's worth to be paying attention to because we can't have things like this going on without politicians. And I pray to God that Ms. Henyard, you're not involved in this because this would just be flat out wrong. This would be flat out wrong. So, last thing we want to talk about tonight is what's going on at the Supreme Court. Now, today, the Supreme Court heard two different cases. All right, there are two cases going on at the Supreme Court right now that I think we all as citizens need to be paying attention to, because one involves something that we all utilize and the other one involves guns. All right, two hot topics in this country. A lot of people are very, 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 very adamant about gun control and gun safety measures and gun violence, and and reducing gun violence. I'm a proponent of reducing gun violence. I don't know if there is a true solution. I don't know if violating the Second Amendment, taking guns away from people, or like blaming manufacturers because of it is the way to do it. Because it's such a tough subject, and also because of the fact that there's so many of them in the country right now, through illegal means, through reproduction, through restoration, through just everything. So, is there a simple solution to this? No, because it still takes a special person. It takes a heartless person to take out a weapon and kill someone. And especially in cold blood. Now, if it's in self-defense, that's one thing. But if it's in cold blood, it takes a heinous person to do something like that. So, and I don't think it's the gun. I think it's the person. So, but the other one involves social media, and it's whether or not the Biden administration, basically during COVID-19, did they censor people like Rizza Islam, who's very vocal about vaccinations and things? Were those people purposely targeted and had their social media platforms deplatformed? And was this at the behest and because of Biden administration? So we're gonna listen to this. This video is kind of long, about 5 minutes, but I want y'all to pay attention to this because I really believe that these are the type of topics that we need to be paying attention to, because these things affect things that we affect who we are. And the Supreme Court right now, if y'all haven't seen, the Supreme Court is basically creating the law for the country right now. Whatever Congress is doing is failing in comparison to what's going on at the Supreme Court. So when we talk about packing courts and what judges are on the bench, these are lifetime appointments. These people are setting precedent and law and becoming the final authority on this. They are the final authority. Y'all do realize this. The Supreme Court, once it gets challenged there, the Supreme Court rules over it. The only way you can do is a presidential veto. And that really just has to go back through a bill format, because if they rule on it, then he can't really, the only way he can do is to try to sue and try to re-argue the same case. The Supreme Court is where the power of the country resides right now. And everything that we focus on, and everything that we do, everything that we love, every freedom that we supposed to have in this country is under attack. And there's 9 people in this country who are some of them are up in age. Let's be honest. Our country's ran by a bunch of elderly folks. They are setting precedent and law that is going to be taking effect and be in effect well after they're gone. This is what we're dealing with right now. So I'm gonna play this video and then we'll discuss another side.
The Supreme Court will hear arguments on 2 major First Amendment cases. In one case, the justices will weigh whether the government crossed a constitutional line by pressuring social media platforms to take down content it deemed misleading on topics like COVID-19 and the 2020 presidential election. They'll also hear arguments in a dispute from the National Rifle Association. So Chief Legal Correspondent Jan Crawford is joining us now to break down the cases and their potential impact. Jan, good morning.
Well, good morning. I mean, obviously this term, when it started out, we thought the whole focus was going to be on social media and how you apply this, old constitutional document to this emerging technology. So as you've seen, we have a number of cases here on free speech and social media. Today is a really interesting one when we're talking about social media. And you got to look back to 2020 and remember where we were with the emerging pandemic and the government being very worried about misinformation. So Biden administration officials started working very closely with the social media companies, flagging posts that they thought were objectionable. As a result of that, a lot of content got kicked off these platforms, and people got kicked off these platforms at the White House or the CDC had flagged those posts. So here we are today, a couple professors, Harvard and Stanford Law School, doctors, a website, all of whom got their views suppressed, censored, they say. And 2 states, Missouri and Florida, have asked the lower courts and sued, saying that the Biden administration violated their First Amendment rights by working with these companies and coercing these companies to take down these posts. Now, the Biden administration says, wait, that is not true. We have got to be able to address misinformation, particularly during a public health emergency, and we weren't coercing anyone. So really, the heart of the question is whether or not this is coercion and violates the First Amendment because it's censorship, or whether or not the government is actually having this proper role in combating what it sees as misinformation. And that is really the main case today that we're focusing on. And I think it's fascinating because they've got several other social media cases, like I said, this term, and they all kind of go to the heart of, you know, when most Americans are now, or many Americans are getting their news and information, not from as much traditional news sources like newspapers, but TikTok, YouTube, X, which used to be Twitter. What role does the government have, and what role do these social media companies have in kind of policing and regulating content? And those are really at the bottom of this. And a lot of these cases are by conservatives who say that these companies and the Biden administration are unfairly silencing them.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and the timing could not be more crucial, Jan. Jan, thank you so much. So you can see that Omar Villafranca is right beside Jan, because he's monitoring another critical case that's before the Supreme Court today for us. Omar, the justices will be hearing a controversial Texas immigration law called SB 4. What have you heard from Texas police and the sheriff's department about the enforcement of SB 4? Remind people, you know, what this is all about.
Yeah, we're actually waiting to hear what the Supreme Court has to say, because right now the law is on pause. That, granted, I haven't talked to every police department and every sheriff department in the state of Texas, but a lot are saying that they're not a fan of this law because they feel that they're not immigration officers. And one thing they say is they don't have the personnel to enforce this law. Another issue that sheriff departments and police departments is that have the jail space. This law, they're allowed to arrest migrants that are suspected of crossing into the country illegally, which is usually enforced by the federal government, but now the state would do it. They're saying if they have to put some of these migrants in jail, they won't have the space at all. Matter of fact, the sheriff down in Webb County, which is Laredo, Texas, told me if they had to arrest 20 migrants, then it would basically almost put their jail at capacity. Another thing is training. A lot of them saying they haven't gotten the proper training from state officials on how to enforce this law so they're not violating any civil rights while doing it. So everybody's watching to see what the Supreme Court says. Are they going to allow the law to go into effect today at 5 p.m. or are they still going to pause it while the case makes its way through the court system?
Omar, thank you very much. And just sort of a little bit of clarification, because you were breaking up a little bit, to remind people that this is a law that would give local authorities in Texas the mandate to enforce immigration law, which is supposed to be under the purview of the federal government. And that's where the difference is. But Omar, you really explained the sort of pressure that local law enforcement is under if this law goes into effect. Thank you so much.
All right, so I apologize about that for the second video. I thought they were talking about the NRA. They talked about SB 4, which is a whole nother case, which I'll break down here in a little bit. But the NRA case basically was they were and I'll share my screen so you can see it. So basically what happened was it pulls up. You see this, here it is right here. What happened was that they sided with the NRA today. And basically what it was that the NRA argued that their First Amendment rights were violated in the state of New York because they basically persuaded people not to do business with the NRA after a deadly shooting. That's basically what happened. So the dispute is about what happened in Parkland. So this is about the Parkland shooting. And so the NRA said that they persuaded financial institutions, banks, and other insurance companies to, basically suspend doing business with the NRA because of this, and because of that, their business has folded. So that's what it's about. And it seemed like the NRA won that case. They won that case. Basically, it was like, yeah, you cannot sit up here and the government cannot sit up here and target a nonprofit and basically go after them because you're violating their civil rights. And what's crazy about this case is that the NRA and the ACLU is on the other side of this gun debate. They have been pushing for pro-gun measures for a while, for their pro-gun thing. But on this one, it was about the civil rights of the First Amendment rights, and saying that, hey, you all are trying to stop us from doing business because you are condemning, you're basically blaming us for this, and we didn't have anything to do with this with Parkland. Like, we didn't have anything to do with this. And we shouldn't be thrown in, and our business should be affected because some kid decided to go to school and because we didn't have anything to do with that. And that's basically what it is. SB 4 is a law in regards to snatch and grabs that the governor Abbott wants to do in Texas. And basically, the law is, like she said, it empowers the local governments and the local police departments to basically snatch and grab migrants and detain them and then deport. And the argument from the sheriffs in Texas is that this law is completely bonkers. They don't have the resources to be doing this. They're not immigration. This is something for border security, and this is for the federal government. We do not want to be involved in this. This is not a popular law. This is not a popular law. Some people think that what Governor Abbott really wants to do is for this law to go into effect so he can effectively mobilize the National Guard to take over the border. And that's really what this is about. Is whether or not he can use, in the grand scheme of stuff, it's really about, can he use the National Guard because he can say he feels threatened because the National Guard is supposed to be able to protect the borders of the state. They're basically deputized by the governor. So he wants to be able to use them without it seeming like he is putting U.S. troops in violating, laws that we have about using the military for domestic operations. So that's what it's about. So a lot of stuff going on. We talked about, tonight we talked about Trump and the case in Georgia. That's going to continue going on. Like I said earlier, I totally believe that what they're trying to do is just stall this out until the election is over with, and then you can't be indicting a sitting president, so it just go away for a couple of years, and then that's what they want. They're playing a wait long game, and Fani's trying to not play that game. She's like, let's get this case going, and they're going to try to use every single tactic in the law book to prolong this as long as they can. They just want to get to November. and then you have Tiffany Henyard with the alleged sexual assault that happened in Vegas, and that she was privy to, and she openly retaliated by firing a young lady who came to her with this. And then you heard about the 3 Supreme Court cases, the NRA Supreme Court case, the one about social media, which is everybody should be paying attention to, because that affects what we post online. And should the government be able to deem what they feel might be a threat, because it might and that really kind of gets to the heart of like what we do, especially trying to be a content creator, right? Trying to be a content creator this is really what this is basically against. Is if I come on this platform and I'm talking through my camera and I'm recording this and I'm posting this on YouTube and I'm putting it on Spotify, could the government essentially take my words and basically say, no, that's misinformation, strike it down, take his pay, and for the big YouTubers who make a lot of money doing this, that this could really violate somebody's business and what they got going on. For me, they take my page down. I'm still trying to grow it. Obviously, who am I? I'm not on nobody's radar right now. But what if I was somebody big and they said something and they just took it down? So I can see why. And these were professional people. These were doctors. These were lawyers. These were influencers. This is companies, like all this stuff, and they went through this and they got attacked for saying things about the vaccine. And the government was trying to do one thing, and they didn't want nobody to be speaking out against it. So anybody who spoke out against anything, they deemed it as misinformation and got their page struck down. That gets to the crux of like almost communism in a sense, because now what you're saying is that the government has the ability to control the minds of the media, which violates the First Amendment, because now you're manipulating the freedom of the press. So you got a lot of things that you are violating when you start to mess with the people's ability to be able to produce content. Because what is media, right? What is media? What is deemed credible media? Media is pretty much anybody that's producing anything that you see. That's media. That's content. So if you're gonna, you can't have like state. Basically, they want to have like in a sense state-run media, and where they can control the narrative. And if you violate that, we take you out. That doesn't sound like a democracy. That sounds like communism. So pay attention to these Supreme Court cases. Like I said, if you're not paying attention to the Supreme Court cases, you really, really need to be paying attention to them, because that is where everything is being right now. That is where how we conduct business as a country is being solved. Foreign policy, they doing that in DC. Domestic issues is being solved by the Supreme Court. And I care more about what's going on domestically than I care about what's going on abroad. Because the stuff that happens abroad can only happen by the way this stuff is happening domestically. Because if the information is being suppressed, information is being deemed as misinformation, then that means that the government can be doing anything that they want to do. And basically, if we try to push back on it, they can just censor you and say that you're lying, because they have an agenda to push. So what's happening domestically is what affecting what's happening in foreign policy. So we need to be paying attention, because the Supreme Court is making that decision for us right now. So thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. If you got any content that you want me to go over, you got any questions about anything I shared tonight, please send me an email. And for those who've been sending me emails and messages, I appreciate it. I try to comment when you all send me something, so please. And if you got, like I said, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Other than that, keep it culture, and see you next week.